Welcome back to the channel. Have you ever wondered what truly haunts a person? It's not the words they never heard. It's the unexpected silence that lingers in their absence. Some people assume you'll always be there, no matter how many times they push you away. They take your presence for granted, believing your love is something permanent, something they can walk away from and still return to whenever they please. They leave expecting you to chase them, to plead, to break before they do. But what they never anticipate is your silence. And that silence is more powerful than any argument, any explanation, or any outburst of emotion. Silence is the one thing they can't manipulate. When you stop justifying, stop fighting for their attention, stop trying to prove your worth, you take away their control without even lifting a finger. They were prepared for anger, for long messages filled with emotions, for endless attempts to make them see your pain. But they weren't prepared to face themselves in the absence of your voice. At first, they convinced themselves that you're just giving them space, that any moment now you'll return with one more apology, one more attempt to fix what they broke. But what they failed to realize is that your silence is not a strategy, it's a decision. The moment you choose silence over explanation, their illusion of control starts to crumble. Silence doesn't feed their ego, it starves it. It forces them to confront the truth they've been avoiding. That maybe you weren't the weak one. Maybe it was them who were being tolerated. Maybe they were the ones who lost someone willing to love them unconditionally. They thought walking away would break you. Instead, your silence is what's breaking them. Because silence breeds uncertainty, and uncertainty is the most painful burden for the human mind to bear. When you stop reaching out, something shifts. They start checking your social media, scrolling through old conversations, and replaying past moments, wondering if they ever truly understood you. They wanted you to chase them because as long as you were chasing, they didn't have to face the reality of what they lost. But the moment you go silent, a realization hits them, one they never expected. You're not chasing them, you're moving on. This isn't about manipulation or revenge, it's about giving them exactly what they gave you, nothing. Sometimes the most powerful message you can send is no message at all. In this video, we're going to explore why your silence affects them more than you realize, the hidden emotional stages they experience when you step back, and how maintaining your silence not only shifts their mindset, but also strengthens your own self-worth. If you've ever wondered whether your silence truly matters, by the end of this video, you'll understand why it's the most impactful response you can give. Let's dive in. Why silence hurts more than words. Silence is the one thing the human mind can't ignore. Words can be argued against, dismissed, or misunderstood, but silence forces a person to sit alone with their thoughts, and that's where the real battle begins. When someone expects you to chase them, your silence doesn't just confuse them, it unsettles them. They wanted to feel important enough to trigger a reaction. They anticipated anger, long explanations, or one last desperate attempt to prove your worth. But what they never expected was for you to simply do nothing. The power of silence lies in what it denies them. No closure, no reassurance, no validation of their control. Instead, it leaves an empty space in their mind that only they can fill. And when left to their own thoughts, the mind can be its own worst enemy. At first, they tell themselves, you're just playing hard to get, that you're waiting for them to reach out. But as time passes, doubts begin to creep in. What if you're not playing a game? What if you're really done? What if you've already moved on? That uncertainty becomes a slow poison, one they never saw coming, one they unknowingly fed themselves. The Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Silence is a lesson learned through life's many sufferings." And that's exactly what your silence teaches them, that you are no longer suffering for someone who was never willing to suffer for you. Each time they check their phone and see no message, It stings. Every time they refresh your social media and find no sign of sadness, it unsettles them. And when they try to provoke a reaction with indirect posts, only to be met with indifference, it breaks them just a little more. But the real question haunting them isn't whether you're hurting, it's whether you ever really needed them at all. What makes silence so powerful is that it forces them to create their own version of the story, and the mind always imagines the worst. Maybe you're healing. Maybe you're happy. Maybe you found someone better. The truth doesn't even matter. What matters is that they're realizing the person they once took for granted is no longer waiting. They thought they broke you, but your silence proves the only thing they destroyed was the version of you that tolerated their mistreatment. True power lies in the ability to walk away without a fight. And the moment you do, they finally understand they lost someone they never truly deserved. If you believe in the power of silence, drop this affirmation in the comments. My silence is my strength. The hidden stages they go through your silence isn't just something they notice, it's something they feel deeply. But what most people don't realize is that silence doesn't impact them all at once. Instead, it breaks them down gradually, stage by stage, in ways they'll never admit. Stage 1, false confidence. At first, they convince themselves that you're just taking a break, playing a temporary game to get their attention. Their ego reassures them they'll come back. They always do. In this stage, they actually feel in control, believing it's only a matter of time before you reach out with an apology or one last attempt to fix things. What they fail to see is that your silence isn't a strategy. It's your final decision, a boundary they never expected you to set. Stage 2. Curiosity turns to obsession. Days turn into weeks, and the message they were so sure they'd receive never arrives. That's when curiosity sets in. They start checking your social media, watching your stories in secret, searching for any clue that you're still hurting. Maybe a sad quote, a breakup song, or something indirect that hints you're still waiting in the background. But the most unsettling thing they can find is nothing at all. No sad posts, no cryptic messages, no sign that you're struggling without them. Just silence. And that silence starts to get under their skin in ways they can't explain. The human mind craves certainty, and when they can't figure out what you're thinking, their imagination begins crafting painful possibilities. Stage 3. Frustration and control. Tactics. Desperation creeps in. They might start testing you, liking old pictures, posting things they know will get a reaction, or pretending to be happier than ever. It's their way of trying to provoke you, to pull you back into the cycle. But when you remain unbothered, when you refuse to engage, it drives them crazy. For the first time, they're the ones feeling powerless. Stage 4. Fear of being replaced. Then comes the fear. What if you're not playing games? What if you're really done? What if someone else is now experiencing the love they took for granted? The longer your silence holds, the more their mind begins spinning stories that hurt more than any truth ever could. They assumed your silence was weakness, but now they're beginning to wonder if they were the weak ones all along. Because if you truly loved them, why would you let them go so easily? Stage 5. The weight of regret. And finally, regret sets in. Every moment they took for granted replays in their mind like a movie they can't turn off. The times you forgave them, the times you fought for them, the nights you cried behind closed doors, trying to fix what they repeatedly broke. But now you're no longer there to remind them of your love. And that realization is more painful than anything they expected. They won't admit it, of course. Their pride won't allow them to say how much your silence is breaking them. On the surface, they'll act unbothered, but inside, they're falling apart. And the longer you hold your silence, the heavier that regret becomes, until, eventually, they are the ones who break. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "If you wish to be strong, learn to enjoy being misunderstood." That's exactly what your silence does. It allows them to misinterpret your strength while you quietly rebuild yourself behind closed doors. If you're choosing silence as a way to reclaim your power, drop this affirmation in the comments. I am choosing silence because I am choosing myself. Remember, the person who remains silent is the one who holds all the power. How your silence is reprogramming their mind. Your silence isn't just affecting them, it's reshaping their entire perception of you. When someone walks away, they expect to remain the center of your world. They assume you'll make it obvious how much they mattered, that your pain will orbit around them. What they never anticipate is for you to disappear without a fight, without a word. But the moment you go silent, the story they've told themselves about you starts to unravel. Every day that passes without a message forces them to rethink everything they once believed. At first, they saw you as someone who would always wait, someone they could walk away from without ever truly losing. But silence strips them of that illusion. Every time they check their phone and see nothing, their mind starts filling in the blanks. Maybe you weren't as weak as they made you feel. Maybe you weren't chasing them. You were simply choosing them. And now that you're gone, they're questioning whether they ever really had you at all. Silence creates unanswered questions. The human mind craves certainty. It struggles with the unknown. Did you ever really need them? Were they truly special or just another chapter in your story? The more silence you give, the louder those doubts become. But the most painful part for them isn't the silence itself. It's the fact that they'll never know the answers. That doubt starts rewiring their entire perception of who they were to you. They once believed they were the prize. But now your silence is making them wonder. Were they ever valued, or were they simply being tolerated? Silence is not punishment. It's reflection. What they don't realize is that your silence isn't an act of revenge. It's a mirror. You're not trying to hurt them. You're simply letting them experience life without the energy, love, and validation you once provided. And the longer you remain silent, the more valuable your absence becomes. Each time they replay old conversations or scroll through your pictures, they're slowly convincing themselves that they lost something rare, something they may never find again. The philosopher Seneca once said, "The greatest revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." That's exactly what your silence is proving. You are no longer the person they could manipulate. You are no longer the person who needed closure, explanations, or validation. You have become the version of yourself they always feared, the one who can walk away without looking back. Silence leaves them trapped in their own mind. They can't argue with silence. They can't twist it to fit their narrative. They can't control it. Every second you remain silent reprograms their mind to see the truth, that you were always the one with the power. They were simply too blinded by their own ego to recognize it. And by the time they finally break and reach out, you'll already be someone they will never have access to again. If you believe in the power of silence, drop this affirmation in the comments. My silence is teaching them what my presence never could. How to keep your silence. Powerful. The hardest part of staying silent isn't the beginning. It's resisting the urge to break it when your emotions demand otherwise. Your mind craves closure. Your ego seeks validation. But the moment you give in and explain yourself, you hand back the power to the very person who once made you feel powerless. The secret to maintaining powerful silence is understanding that it's not just about what you don't say, it's about who you become in the process. Silence holds no power unless you use it to grow. This is your time to rebuild, to strengthen the parts of yourself they tried to diminish. Work on your physical and mental health. Start journaling. Rediscover the version of yourself that existed before they made you feel like you weren't enough. Every morning you choose discipline over self-pity, you silently send a message, I'm not coming back. Every time you heal a part of yourself that they once took for granted, you prove that their absence isn't a loss, it's an opportunity. But don't just disappear, transform. True power comes when your silence forces them to question if they ever really knew you at all. Let them watch from afar while you quietly evolve into the version of yourself they never thought you could be. Don't block them, don't engage, let them see your glow without hearing a single word from you. What will haunt them most isn't your silence, it's witnessing the life you're building without them. The Stoic philosopher Zeno of Citium once said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so that we can listen more than we speak." Your silence is teaching them a lesson louder than any explanation ever could. You no longer need validation from someone who failed to see your worth when they had the chance. Every moment you remain silent rewires their perception of you, making them realize you were the prize all along. Silence loses its power when used as a punishment, but when used as a tool for self-growth, it becomes your greatest strength. They won't regret losing you because you went silent. They'll regret losing you because the person you've become would never look twice in their direction again. This isn't about making them miss you. It's about making yourself whole to the point where their regret no longer matters. That's the version of you they feared the most, the one they'll never have access to again. When will they break? They won't break the moment you go silent. They'll break the moment they realize you're not waiting for them anymore. Not when they notice your absence, but when they understand that your silence isn't a reaction, it's a choice. It won't happen in the first week, maybe not even in the first month. It will happen when they finally accept that the version of you who begged, pleaded, and fought for them is now just a memory, one they can never reach again. At first, they'll tell themselves you're just playing games, trying to manipulate them with your silence. But silence doesn't break people instantly, it breaks them slowly. Reality will begin replacing their ego-driven assumptions. They'll find themselves scrolling through old messages at 2 a.m., searching for the person who once fought to be heard. They'll replay every conversation where you pleaded for them to stay, and they'll start wondering, how did the person who once gave endless chances suddenly give none? They'll break when they realize you're not angry, you're not bitter, you're not posting sad quotes to get their attention, you're not blocking them to prove a point, you're not trying to make them jealous, you're simply gone. Nothing torments the human mind more than realizing they had everything, and now they have nothing. For some, it will take weeks, for others, months. But the timing is irrelevant, because the longer they take to break, the deeper the regret will cut. The more they delay reaching out, the more they convince themselves that you've already moved on. And when they finally do break, the most painful realization won't just be your silence. It will be the version of you they're reaching out to, the one who no longer needs their apology, the one who no longer waits for closure, the one who finally understands that losing them was the best thing that ever happened. By the time they break, they'll hope to reconnect with the old version of you, the one who would have answered on the first ring. But what they'll never understand is that your silence didn't just hurt them, it transformed you. The Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius once said, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." Your silence isn't revenge, it's evolution. They'll break when they realize you're not just withholding words, you're withholding access, and no amount of regret can ever unlock a door they themselves closed. Your silence isn't punishment, it's protection. Every second you hold on to it, you break the cycle of seeking validation from someone who was never capable of recognizing your worth. So let them wonder, let them regret, let them feel your absence, because your silence is the loudest message you will ever send. If you're choosing self-worth over chasing someone who never valued you, drop this affirmation in the comments: I choose myself. And if you're ready to turn your silence into power, subscribe, because this is just the beginning of your glow-up journey.